Richard Medhurst, free speech martyr, being threatened with trial for terrorism, for writing articles and tweets in not one country but two, joins us now. And we're always very happy to see you, Richard. Your travails, the Calvary that they are putting you through is not underestimated by anyone. But let's start with the apparent imminence of another round of the Israel-Iran war. On the face of it, this would kill Donald Trump's big, beautiful peace deal, big, beautiful ceasefire, and big, beautiful Nobel Peace Prize stone dead. It will mean that the ceasefire didn't even last a week. What do you think?
Thanks for your kind words, George, and it's always a pleasure to be on the program. Well, I suppose I'm a bit biased. I mean, my parents have Nobel Peace Prizes, and it's bad enough Kissinger and Obama have them too. So I think I'd rather Trump doesn't see the light of day in terms of a Nobel Peace Prize. But yeah, I don't think that there's any. I haven't seen any demonstration of good faith or goodwill on the part of the Americans. If you saw that statement, I know Trump has released many deranged ones, but the latest one where he said that he was very upset by what Khamenei, the supreme leader in Iran, had how he described winning the war essentially, and that that Trump had dropped working on sanctions relief as a result. I mean, I find that laughable because he's the reason that there are sanctions on Iran. He left the JCPOA in May 2018 after it had been working perfectly for 3 years, and he put sanctions on them. So he had 7 years to right that wrong, to correct course, and he didn't do that. So I don't believe that the tipping point was a 10-minute speech by Khamenei. He had no intention of doing that. And given the Israelis' tenacity and persistence in going after Syria, for example, which has always been a thorn in their side. I mean, you're seeing, of course, the news coming out this week, although I think you and many of us who are against the dirty war predicted this a long time ago and were smeared for it. There's going to be normalization between Israel and this new regime. And remember that this war wasn't just 15 years or 14 years. It's been really about 50, 60 years now the Israelis have been trying to take over Syria. So I don't see them ever relenting or stopping when it comes to Iran. They're hell-bent on regime change, and they're going to do whatever it takes to do that. And it's never been about the nuclear weapons. We all know that. The fact Iran was able to respond with ballistic missiles and defend itself at all with conventional means is really the crux of the issue. And Trump even said as much when he withdrew from the JCPOA. He said that he didn't like the fact they had ballistic missiles. He didn't like the fact that they had these so-called proxy groups, quote unquote, which what he means is they're regional allies. That has really been the main issue, because they want to dominate the region and have dominion over the Middle East without any sort of pushback. And Iran, aside from Syria, Syria was the only Arab state actor in the region, but Iran was the more powerful state actor in the region that could provide that support for people to resist American imperialism and Zionism, and it had its own independent foreign policy. And, it's got too much gas and too much oil for it to be left alone. So I really don't believe the ceasefire is going to hold. And I saw also the figures just now from the poll on your show, what the viewers are saying, and I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think it's going to hold for very long. There's just too much at stake here, not in the moral sense or the legal sense, but just in the sense that Israel, Netanyahu has come away with all these victories. He's gotten away with, killing Nasrallah. He's gotten away with taking over Syria, carrying out a genocide in Palestine unimpeded. And I suppose it makes sense from a strategic point of view that he thought he should go for Iran now, lest he never get that opportunity again. But that doesn't make it any more legal or moral. It's just a calculus that he made. And I think he might have overplayed his hand for now.
What would be different this time, though, Richard? By all accounts, certainly by the account of people very, very close to Donald Trump, people like Steve Bannon, it was the Israelis that asked for the ceasefire scarcely a week ago. And that was because of the ability that Iran has to fight back. So if Israel is about to, as Channel 13 said this evening, make another widespread attack, wider and deeper this time, on Iran, Iran presumably will fight back and I'm just wondering what would be different this time.
Yes, it does seem a bit contradictory. I mean, that really is the whole nature of Zionism, because they can't get embroiled in that war without also hurting themselves. But I mean, it's not just. I'm not going to make this about Netanyahu like Bernie Sanders does, and where he kind of absolves Zionism of its contradictory nature. The Israelis, you saw how they're all running to the shelters multiple times a day, paralyzing the whole economy. They want to steal the land, but without any consequences, and they want to dominate others without any consequences, but they're having to negotiate this impossible contradiction where they're fighting a state actor this time, and not just lobbing shells at refugees in tents. And this poses an entirely new set of challenges. We've never seen Tel Aviv and Haifa hit like that before, ever. It's the first wake-up call or shock that Israelis have ever experienced in 3-4 settlers generations of settlers. So they're having to contend with that, and this is another reason why I think it's not just about the interceptor missiles that you refer to, where they spent 20%, I think, of the United States stockpile of THAAD missiles. It's not also about the fact that they couldn't intercept half of the things that were coming in, whether they were using David Sling or Arrow. I think it's, or the Patriot system, by the way. I think it's also because, as you indicated, and now they're spreading these rumors as well through Israeli media, that they might be going for a surprise attack. That's very Israeli and Zionist and American to do. There's no seriousness or goodwill or good faith behind any agreement or any ceasefire. I mean, the one in Lebanon that supposedly took effect the day before Syria fell, by the way, never came into effect. It's been violated 1,000 times, I think some people have counted. It's certainly hundreds of times. And I mean, it was violated not just in the south, but also in Beirut. So all over the place. And the one in Gaza, Trump presided. He was in the White House just a few months ago when the Israelis broke it again. So it's a natural order of things that they're going to break this one as well, and I think that they're going to try and make themselves, maybe they'll leak it that they simply had to ask for the ceasefire because they've expended their stockpiles, and they're simply worn out. That could also just be disinformation and counterintelligence to kind of trick the Iranians into thinking that they're in a more favorable position than the Israelis, and then they hit them very hard. I think the Iranians really have to watch their step now and be very, very careful, because it's an existential threat. And the Americans and the Israelis are not going to stop until they get the same results that they got all over the Middle East, including in Syria very recently. Once Syria was gone, I think you and I, or we all knew that Iran was going to be next eventually.
I'd love to talk to you more about Lebanon, but I don't want to put you in any difficulties vis-a-vis your case. It's a sad thing to say that you and I, as free British citizens, we have to walk on eggshells on a matter of great public interest, and in which the public has a big interest because of the sword of Damocles that they have placed over your head. So let me be more general. We saw yet another of these incontinent rants of Donald Trump on Truth Social, in which he dilated on the new Abraham Accords, which were originally signed by a few stooge countries in the Middle East, but not by the most significant ones. But according to Trump, Gaza is going to be administered by 4 Arab countries, 2 of whom he named, Egypt and the UAE. The population is going to be asked to voluntarily emigrate to countries around the world. The resistance leaders are going to go into exile, God knows where, and with what assurances. And that Syria and Saudi Arabia would both be joining a new and improved Abraham Accords. What can you tell us about the veracity of any or all of that?
Yeah, I think it was sort of natural that Saudi Arabia would come last. I was just saying that actually half an hour ago on my show. That was my suspicion, and I was also talking about this aspect of normalization with other Syrians, and just kind of trying to gauge what the national or public opinion is in Syria. Frankly, I think people are too worn out from the war, from the sanctions, to even put up a fight or any kind of pushback. And there's no public infrastructure, there's no security, there's no rule of law or order in Syria. Basic services, basic necessities aren't being met or fulfilled, let alone people being given the possibility or the time to go and protest this latest move. And I find it so shocking and telling that instead of trying to fix the country, because it's barely afloat, it's barely standing, the priority is to go normalize ties with Israel. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about what this war really was about originally. And it's not just the fact that they're normalizing, it's also that they're doing it at the expense of Syria's own soil. The Israelis call it a buffer zone, but it's really just stealing more land in the Golan Heights, and they've already taken it. So I don't see what kind of deal this is. This is more like them dictating to Syria what's going to happen. And it's already happened. They've taken Mount Haramon, they've taken an area twice the size of Gaza, in addition to what they've already been occupying since '67, and they've got all this gas that's ready to be stolen and shall we say explored in quotation marks on the coast. That's also true of Gaza. That's also true of Lebanon, which a lot of people forget. There's tons of gas in the Leviathan Basin that the Israelis are ready to steal and give to Europe because Iran and Russia are under sanctions. So it is 120% in their interest to normalize as fast as possible. And I'll also remind the viewers that Syria had a foreign debt of a whopping $15 million, which is really nothing for a nation state, for a country to have in terms of foreign debt. And Qatar and Saudi Arabia, of all people, had the benevolence and the kind-heartedness to come and pay that off for Syria just about a month ago. And then all of a sudden, almost instantaneously, the World Bank said that they're ready to start giving loans to Syria. And we can all guess where that loan money is going to go to. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, who have all these construction projects and pipelines that they're ready to build through Syria. So it's another aspect of this racketeering that has been a long time in the making, and they need that normalization to go ahead and take place before they can start robbing and hollowing out the country. And of course, not to mention the fact that they've disbanded all these Palestinian groups. That's also been a large part of that normalization. PIJ, for example, and others were based in Damascus, and a lot of them have been arrested, and the groups have been dissolved. So the Israelis really getting everything they want. I don't know what Syria is getting out of any of this. Usually when you normalize ties or establish ties, it's supposed to be, politics in general is made up or defined and based on common interests, and there's no common interest here. It's just Israeli interests. So absolutely, Syria will come first because that's priority, and then Saudi Arabia makes sense. But you correctly pointed out that these leaders that will be sent who knows where, I can't think of any actors that would take them with the true security guarantees, because they've all been compromised at this point by Israel. So it's kind of a moot point. But on a strategic level, George, the Israelis have certainly made a lot of headway, a lot of progress in theaters that they've tried to win in for decades now, in Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and now they're even making a bit of headway in terms of getting the US to help them attack Iran. But I'll just say that in terms of public opinion in the West, I think they're at their lowest point. I don't think Zionism has ever been in so much peril, and it is important to highlight that contrast, that they are winning on the ground in terms of strategy purely through sheer brute force. But when it comes to public opinion in the West, where their life support is based, they are doing worse than ever. I think you saw what happened in Glastonbury, for example.